There's something about taking your favorite camera, someone you love, hopping on a scooter and driving down a beautiful stretch of road that brings you just a little bit closer to heaven. No preconceived notions, no particular aim, just riding and taking things as they come. Being observant without expectation. There's a deep joy in serendipity, joy in being open and accepting to all of life's possibilities. There's so many cute little towns and villages along the Amalfi coast, and I'm just sitting here rewatching this footage and I can't help but think, damn, that was fun.
You feel alive, let's hit the dance floor. Don't work too hard, might break a backbone. Return of the Mac, the king is back though. Corvette and cash, I never lack those. She saw the stone, you know how that go. Fatality, my diamonds that cold. Versace trunks, I hit my backstroke. Knock on the door, she at the back, bro. All I really take is a little taste. Island girl, blue eyes with a little bass. Here for the thrill, I don't need a chaser. Wanna vibe at a getaway. Shimmy, shimmy, yeah, I got the semi-four way. Don't step out the line like this a probate. You hit the line and try to locate. This for the time, got time for no day. One, too many, I'm going. Too crazy and I got bad ones and they ready. A good time, so now it's into it, we left that. Can't remember anything, but I know we got lit. Good times, live in the moment, feel like summertime. Obsessed with nature, not a world mind. The room is spinning, but I feel fine.
After photographing Salerno, the Amalfi Coast, Ischia, Procida, and Pizzoli, we boarded a train for one of my favorite cities in the world, Venice, Italy. Unfortunately, I came down with a terrible stomach bug, and I was down for the count for much of the time I was there. That being said, I did manage to make it out to Verona, the famous backdrop for Romeo and Juliet, to see my buddy Joey's exhibition opening. After having left Venice, we headed up to Lake Como, Italy, which is this big, gorgeous lake at the northern part of the country. I had a photo shoot with a hospitality client there in which we were out on the boat photographing jet skis. There was these two models who just had no idea how to ride a jet ski. I think it was their first time riding alone on a jet ski, but by the time we finished, they were absolutely killing it, and I got to leverage some of my knowledge having grown up in Florida around jet skis. But I was actually a jet ski instructor when I first got to New York to try and provide for myself before my photo career really got going. So that was kind of a fun way to incorporate some of my past experiences into the shoot, and because of that, we killed it. The shoot was awesome. The client was really happy. It was a good situation there. So left there, headed up to the northern part of the lake to get some R&R with Nikki. Just spent some time relaxing on this beautiful little farmhouse overlooking the mountains before we headed down to Cinque Terre a few days later. Had wanted to make some photographs underwater here in Cinque Terre, but the waves turned out to be much too big for that, the water much too murky, and just decided to hang out anyway. Shot some great photos of some surfers in a storm. That was really cool, and then headed on down to Tuscany. Now, I'd never been to Siena, I'd never been to Florence, and both of those cities were really great. Look at this light here. It's so warm. The quality was awesome. As far as the people go, lots of interesting characters, lots of open space to work. Now, Florence was another level. This gentleman's name was Yakov. Made some portraits of him, broke out the M6 and some Portra 400. Strolled around Florence and got some photographs of people who were just kind of like walking into the scene. That's the great thing about Florence, is that the place is so interesting. You just kind of have to wait for people to walk on in and just click the shutter. Made shooting really pleasurable and was just a lot less work than many of the other places I had photographed in the past.
Amazing! Beautiful.
dramatic is that? It's starting to get real dreamy here. Real dreamy if you're shooting this way. While in Tuscany, I had the good fortune of being able to work with the Stitchano Estate. Now, the Stitchano Estate is a historic estate of noble origins, dating back to the time of the Medicis. On all sides of this medieval farmhouse are these silky, rolling hills of olive groves and vineyards, and I could not have asked for a more picturesque place to do a photo shoot. Now, although we had a picturesque backdrop, this shoot was not without its challenges, one of which being that I didn't speak any Italian and my subjects didn't speak any English. So through a series of miming to each other, I positioned them very quickly as the sun was dropping where I needed them to be and made sure I got the outcome I needed to get. That's one of the biggest things with photography. You always need to be able to control your shoot and ensure the outcome you want to get. Don't feel guilty or don't have regret later on because you weren't confident enough. It's your shoot, be assertive, get in there, take control, and make it happen. What almost didn't happen was us getting out of the vineyard, as it's much more difficult to traverse terrain in the dead of night when you cannot see the ground, even with four-wheel drive vehicles. But luckily enough, we were able to pull through, got a good night's sleep, and woke up the next morning for another awesome photo shoot. You guys have heard me talk about how photography is something that takes you places and puts you in environments and in situations that you would have never gone in before, and that's what makes it so beautiful. And this is one of those situations. Learning about wine was such a pleasurable experience. Just being able to sit here and see the science and the talent and the engineering and the artistry behind the winemaking process was a real treat. One of my favorite locations I was able to shoot in were the wine cellars. These cellars were underneath the ground, and you walk down there and you could feel the difference in humidity just going inside the chamber, where you have these big barrels where wine's fermenting in kind of the last step before they're bottled and put onto shelves. So that was really, really neat. Later on in the day, I made a portrait of my friend Luis, who's an executive at the estate, before going deep into the Italian forest to make a portrait of a truffle hunter. The embankment was steep and the road small. Time and the elements had ensured that every couple hundred meters, the dirt trail appeared as a piece of lasagna might appear after being sliced by a knife, with giant slanted divots separating one side from another. With Nikki on my lap, we gripped the handlebars along the car's frame tightly as we jostled about. Eventually, we got to a clearing, parked, and stepped out. Stefano swung open the trunk and unlatched the door of the crate as a black and white peppered pup burst out, wagging his tail happily. His happiness enhanced my own, as with any good dog. His name was Pepe. Truffle hunting entails the identification of areas where the truffle plant grows, from whose roots grow the underground fungus named truffle. This step is carried out with the help of a trained dog. The hunters then use a special spade that allows them to extract the truffles without disturbing the soil conditions. Truffle hunting involves a wide range of skills and knowledge about the climate, environment, vegetation, all related to the management of natural ecosystems and to the dog-hunter relationship. I began to pull my gear out of the Suzuki, and Nikki and I balanced the load between us. We had our hands full as we began to walk down the steep slant to the riverbed. It was late September, and the ground crunched beneath our feet, every step having the potential to send us sliding down the steep grade. We followed Stefano's steps carefully, using the light stands to push back the brush at our eye line. Eventually, we reached the riverbed. It was completely dry, with 4 to 12 foot embankments on each side depending on which section of the river we were at. Pepe began sniffing around, panting excitedly. It was quite the game for him. We began walking down the riverbed in Pepe's direction. Large logs had fallen across the top of the riverbed and into it, and we had to climb over and under them as we spoke about truffle hunting and Stefano's past. It was nostalgic, taking me back to the days of my childhood in Gainesville, Florida, wandering down Hogtown Creek. Pepe seemed very focused on an area about 6 feet up the wall of the embankment. He became very still, and you could hear his nose sniffing, and see he was trying to kind of sort it all out. Out of nowhere, he began digging wildly. It was as if he was digging to breathe, to survive. He had no good footing on the steep wall, but managed to somehow kind of balance himself and dig effectively as dirt, flew in all directions, covering us as we tried to step out of the way. Just after this video was filmed, truffle hunting actually was added to the Intangible Cultural Heritage list over at the UN, reflecting its importance not only in Italy, but around the world.
It's there, something's there. I've never seen a dog so sure of something in my life. He knows. There is a truffle there.
I began looking for a scene, but the woods were really busy and the light was peppering the ground in spots as it shone through the tall trees above. We reached a hard curve in the riverbed where you could tell the current had been strong because the wall was much taller and the river had been carved much deeper into the embankment. The light was more even here, and I had a little bit more space to set up the massive modifier I had brought with me. As we began setting up, Stefano rested against the wall of the bed, smoking a cigarette as Pepe rolled around beneath him. I snapped a few frames as he sat before walking around the area, photographing different locations until I found a few that I was satisfied with. Stefano had an amazing, unique countenance, and I felt really lucky to have such a strong subject. After a great time shooting, we wrapped and began hiking the 2 hours back to Stefano's 4x4.
Got it!
When we piled into the SUV, we had 3 nice-sized truffles to show for our efforts. It felt like a great success. It was the final shoot I did at Tenuta di Stitchano before heading to our next location. We arrived just after sundown and were greeted by a powerful thunderstorm in the distance. Before we even went inside, we sat on our car to watch the light show as a new adventure was about to begin.
I came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Try to catch me howling at the moon.